Hello and welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 186. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With this week is Isli.
Yo.
And Messiah.
Hello.
Your yo is really low.
I know. I said yo like right after I took a breath of a drink of coffee, and it kind of like got stuck in my throat.
I was like, I did turn down the volume of the call, and I was like, wait, did I turn it down too low?
I'm practicing ASMR. No, it's even though I know the yo is coming, it's like I still chose to drink a bit of coffee right beforehand, and I'm like, I could fit this in. This won't be a problem.
This guy.
There's a problem.
Yep.
It was a problem.
Yeah, here we are. It's this episode will all be about the Game Awards because that was like the big thing that happened. There's a bunch of reveals, so we can go over some of the winners and whatnot, and we can talk about what we've been playing since Isli hasn't been on for a while because he hasn't had a computer. Talk about whatever he's been doing.
He's alive.
I am alive.
We'll go ahead and just talk about the winners real quick. We're not going to go through everything. Like a lot like Healy, we're going to skim through a bunch of stuff. No, it is still kind of annoying that they put stuff in the pre-show. But at least the stuff that wins in the pre-show, usually they get to go up on stage and accept the award for some of those. But it's like weird how little time they give to certain other categories. Now, we'll get into it later once we go along the group. But we'll go ahead and start with some of the low-end stuff. I like the websites to actually put it in the proper order. So we'll skip like the esports and the VR games because we don't do any racing. I was a little bummed that Best Sim Strategy went to Frostpunk 2, but they didn't get to go up and like accept it. I was like, oh damn, why you gotta poo-poo the sim games and the strategy games?
It was a recurring theme, but I do feel like the Game Awards this year were much more about game announcements than actual awards, because when they actually announced the awards, they fucking cruised through them. Like, it was like, all right, here's 8 awards. Let me rattle these all off really quick, and now we'll get back to the game trailers.
Yeah. I wish I could go back and see like doing the esports one, totally fine. I don't like, it's such a weird, like the esports, there is an esports award show. They have their own thing. We don't need to do like, I don't know why we brought in esports into the Game Awards. It's not important to the Game Awards. So I don't know why we did that. So whatever. And then like, yeah, the other stuff, it's like, okay, like they did RPG. Now they did RPG in a year prior. I think the year that Elden Ring won, they also won RPG. So it made sense. Like, okay, you skip this because the winner of this category is going to win either narrative, if it's a narrative RPG, or game of the year. And which is also kind of a spoiler because I'm like, okay, well, if none of the other games in the category are also nominated for a later category, then I know who's going to take it. You know what I mean? Except for it's the ones like, okay, I kind of figured like, clearly, like when Metaphor ReFantasio got it, I was like, okay, they're going to win. Because I didn't pay attention to the categories when they announced them, like because it was so like such a odd year. I was like, okay, I'll just go into the show, kind of not looking at who's in each one. I kind of knew an idea of who would be there, but so then when they got it for best narrative, like, okay, this is going to go to Metaphor ReFantasio because they also run RPG, and this is why they didn't go up on stage. It's like the year that It Takes Two won. They got best. They get family game or something like that. I'm like, oh, why wouldn't they have Joseph Fares on stage? Then I'm like, oh, because he won Game of the Year. I was like, that makes sense. I'm like, okay, but again, I still feel like, well, it's not only a spoiler for us, but also the people who are gonna win. You know what I mean? Like, if they catch on to the fact, it's I don't know.
Do you think they know? Do you think they know ahead of time who's gonna win though? I've always wondered that about the Game Awards. Of like, if they give someone a heads up and they're like, FYI, you won, so pay attention during this section.
For the people that can't go there, yes. Because sometimes they'll have like, a call-in, like a video. Like, hey, you're going to win this. Can you record a video for your win? Yada, yada. Back before they had that 1 year where it was all virtual. Like, they've done that. Like, hey, they're not here. Now which is rare for the Game Awards. Now typically that's like movies and stuff. They've only done that, I think, a couple times at the Game Awards. Now they have someone else accept on their behalf. But we did see when, spoilers later on, but like when Astrobot won Game of the Year, they said, oh, we didn't have anything prepped for this. They weren't expecting it because they got another category earlier and they had a speech ready in case they won something else and they weren't expecting it. Or like that 1 year that, I guess it was like the DICE Awards where like Nintendo just swept and the Nintendo guy was the meme. But I mean, it's like you gotta, even if I can't imagine everybody knows they're going to win. It's just like, hey, show up if you can. It's more of a support for probably the industry versus like you're not necessarily going there hoping you win. I mean, Phil Spencer was there. There's no Xbox games that are, up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Phil Spencer, the one who spawned all of those memes of like, this is what frustration looks like.
Dude.
And then they're like, we'll talk about that later, maybe. But Phil Spencer's face throughout the fucking thing was not one of support for the industry.
He has like resting, like not even like, I wish I wasn't here face, but like resting like, I don't know, like not even like jealousy, but just like his expression when the camera pans from the Astrobot team winning.
Yes, to him.
Mark Cerny, all them, and then it's just like, and you see Phil, and he's just got that look. It's like I'm
sure he's actually like. I do feel like Phil Spencer generally is actually quite supportive of Sony and Nintendo and other games industries. So I don't think it's actually true, but like it was really funny when Astrobot won, and then in their speech they thanked Nintendo, and then the cameraman pans to Phil Spencer, who's sitting there just looking like dead inside, like he doesn't want to be there. It really just sent off this message of like, you are upset about something, even though I doubt he actually was.
Yeah, and it's got to be tough too, because it's more like, he's got to have that like, oh, we didn't have anything nominated because we didn't have much out this year, so he could be thinking about that. Like, it's got to be like this chain of thought of like, okay, because he's head of Xbox, so it's like, all right, we didn't have anything this year we could have pushed. Is there anything we could have potentially had if we had done it better? Maybe he's like micromanaging thoughts in his head about other studios and yada, or maybe he's like, oh, maybe next year we'll be up for this or blah, 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 or if we were able to get this game out earlier, who knows? But yeah, it was just his expression was just like really funny.
Yeah.
That was a very like, oh, that man is either upset or he has a really bad headache and just doesn't want to be there anymore.
But yeah, like we said, we already talked about Metaphor and ReFantazio getting narrative and role-playing game, and then we had most, I'm gonna skip that. Best indie game and debut indie game both went to Balatro, as they call it. Multiplayer went to Helldivers 2. Local Thunk wasn't there. I was kind of hoping like he would be there, but and then they're like accept on his behalf. He's like, oh, he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't like recognition, which I thought was like, okay, that's kind of real, because I probably would, if I was the sole dev on something, I would be like, nah, I don't want to stand up in front of a bunch of people.
Right.
Like, I'm okay.
What is so I wasn't following this, but like with Helldivers when they won, all the like Twitch chatter was about how you shouldn't support Helldivers anymore because Sony fucked them over or something. And I'm like, what did Sony do? I didn't think Sony did anything like naughty to Helldivers.
It
Sony,
did
the PlayStation requirement.
Yeah, you have to. Oh,
that's what it was. Yeah. Okay, I forgot about
that. That was 2 months after launch. They applied that, and that's when it got review bombed and yada yada. And it's like, and they fixed it, and then this and that. Not they fixed it, but like they said like, hey, it's not bad, and people are like, it's just that the review bombing stuff is just so dumb. It's like we talked. I mean, I don't want to rehash what we talked about earlier in the year, but it's just like that's not. When it's the publisher's decision, don't punish the developers, man. But and Sony should have reversed the requirement, especially because it blocked, mainly for Helldivers, because it blocked, and we're talking about it just like we did last time, it blocked it out of certain countries. Like that was the big issue about the PSN requirement. It's like, oh, boo-hoo, you have to get a PSN account, that's nothing. But because it also removes from multiple countries, because there's no PlayStation Network there, that's a bigger problem. I'm like, okay. Now, I'm sure Sony's probably looking at the numbers like, okay, well, how many people are actually playing in those countries? Who knows? But regardless, it's like if there's players there who bought the product, they should be able to play it without this requirement that you tacked on 2 months later. But anyway. And yeah, and then best adaptation went to Fallout, which I feel like Arcane got robbed. I feel like, and I think that's because like none of the people I've listened to in the game space, like on gaming podcasts, not many of them have watched Arcane season 1 even. Okay,
so I heard a good argument for this though. First of all, I think Fallout was a phenomenal show.
Oh yes,
like
yes.
I really enjoyed Fallout. Yeah. Like Fallout, if Arcane was like a 10 out of 10 show, Fallout for me was probably like a 9.5 out of 10 or something. Like it's way up there. Yeah. But one of the best arguments I heard is that Arcane didn't really adapt any League of Legends stuff. Like you don't watch Arcane and think, oh, they really captured the vibe of League of Legends. It's totally own beast. Whereas if you watch Fallout, I did multiple times think like, oh wow, they really captured the Fallout universe well. So I can less of a game adaptation for Arcane. It's more of just like they used some of the same characters, but really they wrote their whole own universe and show and just like very lightly borrowed from it.
Well, they do have a lot of stuff that's like lore that's really only part of like character interactions. Like the hints that Jinx and Vi were sisters is hinted at. Warwick being who knowing that he knows Jinx and Vi is hinted in the voice lines. Like there's hidden lore, kind of like a step above a Souls game where like it's there if you read those character interactions, and then they also have like, cinematics, but usually those don't give a whole lot. Usually just that character stuff. So they build on that and yada yada. But Fallout, yeah, definitely it's like, okay, Arcane proved itself with season 1. So it's like I feel like because they were able to, they had more freedom to build off an do an adaptation off a game they have that has more not under the radar kind of lore, but like lore you have to look for versus an established IP like Fallout. It's a taller order, especially for live action. And it's like I guess the gap of quality you would have to hit to go from nothing to Fallout Season 1 versus nothing to Arcane Season 1 to Arcane Season 2, where it's like, okay, you've already got it established. We know it's going to be good. It's kind of like the sequel slump you kind of get. Like, it's the Spider-Man problem, right? It's always like, oh, Spider-Man 2 is a great game. And we knew it would be a great game. So our expectation was it would be a great game, and it is. So because of that, it's like it met expectations. It's like, okay, it's really good. But this other thing actually did a really good job too, and it had a bigger, jump to make. And I feel like, yeah, it definitely is tougher to adapt a live action thing than it is to perhaps, well, I don't want to say tougher, but I feel like, because all that production, you got to do it in the live action stuff. I feel like I can get it. It's just, I do feel like most of the people who I listen to in game stuff, they watch the Fallout show because they wanted to see, because it was live action and not because it was animated, where they didn't watch Arcane. So I feel like there's a little bit of a gap there. But anyway, that's just me. Like, it's the amount of people I also know who don't watch Castlevania, or they only watched a couple episodes of season 1. But Castlevania is like, it's a really good show. Why aren't you watching it? It's like the bugs me. But it's animated, so they don't. So they got like this bias against animation.
I mean, I will say that this makes it sound like the Fallout show didn't deserve to win.
Right,
and it was
right.
like, it is you're arguing between two really, really good adaptations, essentially. And I do agree that for me, Arcane probably edged out Fallout by like a little bit. But the expectation thing is a good observation of, people expected Arcane to be really good. So if you scored it, it'd be like, yeah, meets expectations. It was fun. It met my expectations, which sounds so bad.
Yeah.
But Fallout, I definitely had really low hopes for. And then when it turned out to actually both be like the vibe of the game and tell an engaging story, really caught me off guard.
Yeah,
I didn't expect them to get the humor and the gore and the mixture of like apocalyptic elements and really nail the black comedy kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like I said, it's the difference between the 9.5 and a 10. It's like, okay, what's that 0.5? It's like it's Arcane. It's the 0.5. But Fallout is still a really good show. Yeah. It was kind of surprising, but from what I've seen from the gaming community, or I should say the gaming press, I'm not surprised. And then best score went to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Best performance went to Melina Jurgens for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. That was interesting because Brianna White for FF7. He had Hannah Telle for Life is Strange Double Exposure. I'm not familiar with that game. Humberly Gonzalez for Star Wars Outlaws, and Luke Roberts for Silent Hill 2. And I did like Luke's performance, but I feel like that character is very one note throughout most of that game, because like, gotta find my wife, and like there's crazy shit going on and they're not really reacting to it. And it's like, come on, James, do something. But even though I did like his performance, but yeah, like they said, she's the only person to get two awards for performance.
He did good for his performance, and I do feel like a lot of his performance direction was match the awkwardness of the original Silent Hill game.
Yeah, this is true.
So it was like, in the original Silent Hill game, James doesn't really react to anything that's going on with any particular voice acting because it's such an old game, obviously. And I feel like they tried to capture that in the remake, which makes it a faithful remake, but also does create this disconnect of like, dude, why aren't you freaking the fuck out? Like, why are you just fine with this? And then, the memes of him jumping down the holes and stuff and just being fine with it.
Putting his hand in dirty toilets. Yeah.
So it's like a lot of the stuff he does, they captured the original Silent Hill really well. So in that regards, it's a fantastic remake. It's still a really good game, But
Yeah.
it does mean that in some of the instances, like the voice acting, you're kind of like, well, you were a little bit hamstrung by the source material, in that if you strayed too far from it, people would then be shitting on the game for being a poor remake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Versus like Brianna White, who's like, okay, you have this character that wasn't voiced in the OG game, was voiced in some stuff later in other games, but not in like the game you're doing a remake of. So it's like, okay, now you have this performance you get to do. But anyway, like I said, best narrative went to Metaphor Fantasio. Mobile went to Balatro. Art direction went to Metaphor Fantasio. Ongoing game, Helldivers 2. Game direction went to Astrobot. And then Game of the Year went to Astrobot, which I had no idea where it was going. It's like all that concern about Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree being nominated. It's like didn't matter because it didn't win any of the stuff. But yeah, Astrobot got Game of the Year.
I mean, you haven't played Astrobot yet, right? Like any of it?
I've only played a little bit of it, but I wasn't in the right headspace, if that makes sense, to like keep going. Like I played a little bit of like the first couple I call them missions, but like I didn't, and like it was good, but I wasn't. I picked a bad time to play. I was like, okay, I shouldn't be playing this right now. I'm not in that mood for it. I just played it because I had it.
I was happy Astrobot won, but I was also a little bit surprised. So I think that, like, thinking back on the games I played this year, Astrobot was probably the best game I played this year, and it is not designed to cater to the adult gaming experience for people who know life games or play just like a shit ton of hours. It's definitely like designed as a Nintendo-esque family game, and there's a lot to enjoy as an adult in it. But I was curious because I could see a lot of the people not voting for it just because it's not their demographic, essentially. But like it does so much so well. So like every level is an homage to something. There are Easter eggs from all of PlayStation's history there. It's really cute. The platforming is a little bit simple, but pretty fun. There's like small little details in the graphic design of the game, like the raindrops and everything are the PlayStation logos when they hit the ground.
Oh, nice.
All the textures and everything are the PlayStation logos. So like they really, really went detailed with making it like a PlayStation centric game. Every water splash ends up being a PlayStation logo. They've got costumes for pretty much every major game that PlayStation has ever released that's first party or influential to its history. The soundtrack, I was watching someone play it last night because they started it after it won Game of the Year. And I was like, wow, I didn't appreciate this so much when I was playing, but the soundtrack on this game is actually phenomenal. And it has like recognizable songs, and then it has remixes from some of PlayStation's like biggest games ever. They remixed a lot of the songs for Astrobot and did a great job remixing them. So it checks pretty much all of the boxes. The only thing, quote unquote, working against it was that it was a family game, and it's not a Souls game. It's not that level of difficulty. It is meant to be like played and enjoyed in bite-sized pieces, and it respects your time, and then you're just kind of done with it and you can move on. So it really was like one of my games of the year too, but I was still surprised it won because I didn't think so many people would share that opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, like, how much it was a split vote thing. Because, again, it was we talked about this going into it. Like, it's such an interesting year where there's no, like, one major stand, which usually makes for a better award season. But we still did have some sweeps in some areas, like Balatro, obviously. Metaphor getting two of the big categories. And then Astrobot getting 3 with Game of the Year, Game Direction, and they also got Family Game, which I feel like they also got Best Action Adventure. So like they got a lot of stuff, but I'm like, Family Game? I feel like Family Game at least needs a co-op.
But I could actually see Family Game more than Action Adventure. Action Adventure throws me off a little bit because I would never consider that style of game to be really just to be action adventure.
Yeah, it's platformer.
Yeah, like it just isn't to me. But Family Game I do kind of understand because I don't have kids, though I could imagine that it is a game that the family would enjoy, even just being like all hanging out together while a kid was playing it. It's a little bit of a stretch, I acknowledge, if like multiple people aren't playing it, but like it's very family friendly, and I do think that probably counts for something.
Now, when I was a kid, like play a game, you die, it's the next person's turn. Like that's typically how co-op worked back in the day. Mario goes, then Luigi, yada yada. Like that's
play a game and then you died, and or
Yeah.
you're watching your babysitter play the big scary game that's the big boy game that you're not allowed to play.
The hell kind of
You're like, I never had that.
but as a parent, we've never done, hey, let's play the single player game and just pass the control around. Like we play Overcooked, we play Sackboy: A Big Adventure, we play Mario Party, Mario Kart. Like you do actual multiplayer. I've never as a father, in the 9 years, almost 10.
Why you gotta pull the father card, huh?
Because it's like, at least I have experience in that aspect. It's just like, I'm just thinking about like when I was a kid, like it made sense, like the passing controller, because there weren't many co-op games or proper multiplayer back then. But like, I still feel like I get the sentiment of, like you said, like my kid, he loves Astrobot. Like he played the first one a lot. I think he got the platinum in it. Like he loved that game. He hasn't played too much of this one, but I think that's because he's too busy playing like Roblox with his friends. So he played some of it, but he hasn't beat it. Plus it's been a couple years, yada yada. But it's like, yeah, if I play any game, like we play actual stuff we could all play at the same time, not sit there and wait, kind of game. So that's just me.
I mean, I don't disagree. I guess I wonder how much it's like, is a family game a game that's family appropriate and or fun for the whole family, or is it fun for the whole family at the same time?
Right.
In which case it's like it's just a co-op game. Because like I could see family game being it's fun for dad to play and mom to play and for the kid to play all separately. Or I could see family game being, this is what you play on a family game night or something, in which case that is different.
Yeah, it could be the whole thing, right? Like, yeah, obviously, Silent Hill 2 is not a family game. Mom and dad might like it, but little Billy ain't going to play it. Versus like, yeah, Astrobot, like anybody in the family, it's E for everyone. Anybody can play it. Well, I don't know if Astrobot's E for everyone, but I'm sure it is. But it's like, yeah, anybody, like you said, anybody in the family would enjoy this if they were to play it solo. Versus, and maybe that's why maybe that's what that category means. It's like a game family game, and maybe that definition is on the website. It's like a game that everybody can play together, or a game that anybody in the family would enjoy. And it's like that kind of thing. We're like, hey, I bought this game. We each can, take turns in our own time playing it. Yada yada. We'll all enjoy it. So, which could be, and again, which is totally fine. It's just, it's still kind of strange to me. But I get it though.
It's a different argument. I understand it's a bit of a stretch. I don't know if I fully believe in my own argument, but that's kind of my logic towards it. Is like, it is a game that anyone in the family would really love. Yeah,
and I get that, and that could very well be the description for that category in that bucket of like, hey, just I mean they put platformers into action adventure, right? So it's like they just don't have it. So like, okay, well, what different types of family games are there? And like you said, everybody can play it, or we can all play it together.
I always see it too as like, this is a game that maybe like non-gamers in the family would also enjoy, like stuff like Mario Party and of course Astrobot. Like, grandma might be watching you play Astrobot and she doesn't know anything about PlayStation and she doesn't know what a video game is, but she's enjoying watching you play it because it's cute and it's fun and it's got good music and she's just happy watching you play it kind of vibe. It's just like maybe somebody in the family who doesn't play video games tried it or watched you play it, or you did the take turns kind of thing and just like played it for a little bit kind of thing. Because it always seems like the games in that category are kind of, I don't want to say like video game light, but like entry video games. Like this is something that everybody will enjoy regardless of their familiarity with video games in general.
Yeah, probably. It's just, looking at the rest of we won't have to stick on this category for a long time, but I was looking at the like rest of the games that are in there, and like Princess Peach Showtime. Is that even? I guess there's no co-op, but probably that same thing. Anybody can play it. Super Mario Party Jamboree, Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, and The Plucky Squire.
So it's like things that are wholesome and interesting enough to capture somebody who maybe isn't in this community or in this interested in video games at all. But it's like, hey, my daughter wanted Princess Peach and I watched her play it, and hey, it's actually really cute and fun, and she had a lot of fun enjoying it, or like, whatever. Yeah,
for sure. All right, well, we can go ahead and move on from the awards and go to all the announcements. There were a lot of announcements at the show. A lot of people said, they felt like this was a better award show. Yeah, they should have given more time to some of the categories. to go up there. But
I mean, I think it was objectively a worse awards show. It was entertaining because there were so many announcements.
right, but like he's never gonna course correct that hard. Like they didn't put any time limits on the acceptance speeches, which was great. So it's like that's a huge improvement. I mean, that was one of the biggest things people complained about last time was, hey, we need more time for the awards. We need more awards to be on stage, and you need to not cut people off. But at least he didn't cut people off, which I thought was a big improvement. And if we're going to have announcements, having the big announcements is fun. But yeah, now the next thing you still need to do is give more awards, not in the pre-show, like get, some of the esports nonsense, do that in the pre-show all you want, but like give more time to people to accept the awards. But like I said, because it's not going to change to being a DICE Awards with some trailers and being mainly about trailers and stuff, it's like, okay, well, cool trailers and no time limit on speeches is at least a nice combo because it's not going to completely change. So I feel like that's a step in the right direction, at least not cutting them off. I did like the Muppets. I thought they had some really good jokes ribbing Jeff Keighley. I like that one where it was like, this place looking kind of empty. Yeah, I thought you always sell out. Oh, I thought that was pretty good. Stuff like that.
I want a old man Muppet restream next year. I would very much like to just see them rib the entire time. Thank
MST3K style, just
yeah,
that'd be so good. Just watch them talk, like do a watch along with them. That'd be hilarious. But yeah. Going on to the announcements. Now, I wasn't going to tune in for the pre-show, but I was like, I'll watch the pre-show. But they have a new Ninja Gaiden game from the makers of Blasphemous that was announced, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I'm like, I haven't played a Ninja Gaiden game since the first one on NES as a kid, and I never really cared about any. Like, I think Black is like one of people's favorites on 360, right? Or I think it was on 360. And like people love the franchise. I just never went back to it because I'm like, I can't. But if they're going to go old school with that side scroller style, I'm like, this could be fun to go back to, like and try again. It's coming out summer 2025. I thought that was pretty cool. And they have a game called One Move Away. It's kind of like unpacking, except you're putting stuff in the back of your car, and you got to make it fit. So that was pretty interesting. Fun, like a little cozy game. I'm curious because I didn't play Unpacking, but I'm familiar with the way it does its storytelling. Did you play Unpacking, Isli?
No, it is kind of a game that would interest me, but I feel like cozy games have to be played on a portable or like while traveling or something, and it just didn't line up with when it came out.
It came out on Switch first, didn't it?
No, I mean like it didn't line up with any of like my life stuff or traveling. Yeah. No, I do think it came out on Switch first, and I have all ways to play, portable games like that. It was more of, I feel like when it came out, I was just busy and wrapped up into other things, so I never got around to playing it.
It is interesting because I know the concept. Like it always seemed like a game that would be kind of fun to play. I just never got around to it. But I like the way kind of it does its storytelling of like, obviously you're going through the life of whoever you're playing as is like when they're a kid, probably moving with their family here and there, and then as they grow up, they move out. Maybe they go to college, I think at one point, and then, they get in a relationship and they move in together. But it's like you learn about their life through this unpacking. It's like, oh, maybe they had a stuffed animal as a kid that was with them a lot. And then now it's no longer there. And it's like, okay, why is that gone? Or the house, they're going from this bigger place into a smaller place. And again, this is just, I didn't pay attention to the exact things. I didn't want to obviously spoil it to myself, but like, I'm just thinking of examples that would be similar to be like, oh, now we're in a smaller place. Maybe there's a breakup or something, something happened in their lives. So it's like learning about this person just through the stuff they carry between like every place they move out to as they grow up. I thought was an interesting idea. But yeah, One Move Away is seems like very similar idea to that. So we'll see. Slay the Spire 2 got a new gameplay trailer. That's going to early access next year. And then Dave the Diver in the Jungle. That game has got like legs like I wouldn't believe. I guess.
It was very, very popular with everybody that I watch on Twitch and stuff. So
yeah, I the only time I ever watched it was NL played it way back before it popped off, like when it was in early access, and then like
it's also like referenced in so many other games that I just don't get it. Like even Dredge references it. Well, Dredge has a frickin' Dave the Diver DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like when indie games do that though, where they have like cross. I mean, Balatro just did that with like a bunch of stuff where it's like, oh, Divinity Original Sin 2 cards. Like what? The Red Prince is a card? Like, okay, that's weird. It's like indie games are like doing the Fortnite thing where they're just like crossing over with each other, which I think is really cool. And they're in the same genre. It's like it makes sense, but when like the cross genre, I'm like, that's kind of crazy. But I mean, we saw it with like Among Us, and then they did a lot of stuff. Oh my God, what's the name of the Bean Battle Royale? Fall Guys. Like Fall Guys did a bunch of stuff.
I was like, the Bean Battle Royale. What?
It's like the Bean Battle Royale.
The beans, man. The beans.
The Bean Battle Royale.
I'm thrown off on. I don't think they're beans, man.
I think they call them. I think one of the devs called them beans or something.
They do call them beans.
Yeah.
But
But
it's like an affectionate
that,
term.
Yeah. the it's like their version of like char or tune. Like they just call them beans.
I was thinking of like Brotato style battle royale, but with like little beans. You can have a different kind of bean. It's like, what has kidney beans fighting each other?
Yeah. But yeah, I like when they do little crossover stuff like that in games.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. Then Thick as Thieves, a new stealth action multiplayer game from the Warren Spector studio. I saw it kind of looks like a multiplayer Thief where you're all trying to steal the same stuff. I was like, that could, with the way multiplayer kind of worked in Deathloop, of like, hey, you're trying to steal something and then someone else is trying to kill you, but now instead of trying to kill you, they're also trying to steal it. Seems like a pretty fun idea if it works and you have like little thief tools and whatnot to stop each other. Like that, obviously it wasn't like in-game stuff. It was more like a tone trailer of, hey, this is what we're going for. But it looked, it sounds kind of fun. The downside is being multiplayer and be like, okay, will I want to play this by myself? Or, I mean, if it's 4-player, we could all play it, right? Like, we can just, there we go. We can easily get it. Everybody, Michael can have it, and we could all try it out. But it seems interesting. I'm curious how it'll turn out. And then, so Secret Level, the Amazon show that came out from the people who made Love, Death, and Robots. The first half, I didn't realize they were splitting it up into 2 parts. The first half came out the other week, and one of the episodes was like this dark take on Pac-Man, and which I really liked, because like the theme of the episode, I don't know if you watched it, Isli, but the theme of the episode kind of felt like, from what I got, because they don't give you like all the story because it's a short story, right? They don't tell you all the stuff, but it seems like these people were trying to terraform a planet, but then it got out of control and everybody died because like just crazy flora and fauna got created. And there's this AI that's trapped on this ship in the form of a sphere, like Pac-Man, but it can't escape the planet. So it's growing people, well, quote unquote people, in these tubes, and then training them to fight to get to this like exit point, where like can only be activated by a humanoid character. The AI can't open it, and like that's the theme of it. And it's like it's really dark and stuff. And I was like, this is really cool. But a lot of people like on Twitter were poo-pooing it, like, what does this have to do with Pac-Man? I'm like, do you need lore from fucking Pac-Man do you want, man? Like, oh, it's a lady AI voice. Why isn't there a bow? Like, I don't know what you want. Like, it's fucking Pac-Man. Like, they took a creative license, which clearly they were okay with, the Bandai Namco, to do. And then it turns out, oh, they also are releasing a game called Shadow Labyrinth, which is kind of like this side-scrolling, I don't know if it'll be Metroidvania, but it's inspired, I guess the show's more inspired on the game. Like, it's a game that goes with it. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like this little action side scroller. Maybe it's Metroidvania-esque. It goes with it. I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense of as well, on top of why they would have this episode that's really dark and kind of cool, and then they have a game that goes along with it. But yeah, it's that got announced. It's like, oh, that's nice. So now those people on Twitter can shut up. Be like, this is
I hate
why.
people. Just let people have fun. What do you mean? What does it have to do with Pac-Man? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, right? It's so
that's
so weird.
Enjoy
Man.
the show.
Definitely in the realm of who the fuck cares.
Yeah, that's like when I watched. Now, granted, I've only seen the first half. I'll talk about that later when I get back in the show. We'll move on to what was it? What was that? Then there was a new mobile game called Steel Paws that was shown, coming to Netflix games. How do you pronounce this one? Kiora. It's a pixel sandbox from the Core Keeper devs.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I guess. It looks like Terraria.
Yeah. Yeah, it did when I saw it. I was like,
It does look like Terraria.
Which is fine. Terraria is fun, but I laughed really hard. I was like, wait, I've seen this before.
Then skip the rematch. The next game it's a soccer game from the Sifu Studio, Slow Clap. I was like, we don't play soccer or football, so we don't need to talk about that. But there's one, Solasta 2. Like, I guess Solasta Crown of the Magister is a big RPG I've never heard of, and this is like a sequel that's coming out in 2025.
Also never heard of it.
Right, I've never heard of it either. I'm like, I guess this is
it's got to be PC only, and it's got to be if it's a big game, it's got to be one of those like the PC games that are huge followings that it's just like we just aren't in the right market for it, so we don't know it exists.
Yeah. It's like set decades after the events of the first game, which I didn't know existed. The sequel will take players to the high fantasy world of Nakos, where they'll roll dice using the D20 system to guide their party through all sorts of fantastic adventures. And when you know it, they've even got Baldur's Gate 3 narrator Amelia Tyler on board. So, I mean, if it's got like a, Baldur's Gate D20 style system, like maybe it could be good, but I've never heard of this. I'm like, okay, I'll have to go back and look at the first game to see if it's like I said, it probably was, if it was PC only, I would have missed it. If no one talked about it on podcasts, I didn't hear like Dan Tack or anybody, like big PC folks talk about it. It's like, then it just went under the radar, but we'll see. Then they had a kind of a CG trailer for The Witcher 4 on unreleased NVIDIA hardware. It's like, okay.
Whatever that means.
A 50 series, yeah.
Yeah, a new graphics card? Woo!
Forza is like, I just need to upgrade from what I got. But yeah,
that's one of those. Okay, so it's like actually running on 4 PCs at the same time, and they're all tethered together, whatever it is.
It's like when they're at a game show and they have like, oh, this is a new Xbox game, but the controller cord goes to a little closed box underneath the screen, so you can't see the PC it's running on.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a CG trailer, but it confirmed that Ciri is the main person for Witcher 4, which is going to be really cool.
Which, thank God, because with the way Witcher 3 went, if it wasn't Ciri for Witcher 4, I feel like this is one of the few instances where if it somehow wasn't Ciri and they kept Geralt of Rivia, if they kept him again, I would have been like, what the fuck? This like
howling
doesn't follow the story at all and is totally out of nowhere. But like, I'm so glad they went with Ciri because she's so much more of an interesting character now that she's older.
I'm curious what kind of abilities she'll have too, like, since the Witcher stuff is like very basic, but she's like,
I mean, she's super fucking overpowered, so it'll be interesting to see how they balance it, or if they're just going to go with the route of like, either, it's the classic, oh, it's greater threats, therefore, you have the more powerful person dealing with the greater threats.
Or if it's something like those abilities are like on a really big cooldown to be like, yeah, we have those, but they drain a lot of her power. And so you can only do them for a bit and they got to recharge. Like, okay, I can kind of get that because I'm sure magic is pretty draining. Like,
I would maybe be fine with that approach.
Yeah. I'd be, if they were like dope abilities and stuff, that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, look forward to that. I can't wait to see gameplay because I'm really curious what it's going to look like in game. Because like the Geralt in the Witcher 3 announcement trailers doesn't quite look the same. Like, very still similar, but like obviously it's like it's a toned CG trailer. It's like, but I want to see what it looks like because Ciri looked great in the game. I mean, so did Geralt in like the base game. But it's like, okay, what is it going to look like? It'll be PS5 and Series consoles only and PC. So if it's done like that, it's like, okay, then it should be pretty good. If they're not releasing on PS4 and Xbox One, but we'll see. Who knows when the heck that's going to come out? But that was
after Cyberpunk, I really hope they don't try to release it on PS4 and Xbox One. That would be like.
They should learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Just let those consoles die. Just let them have their library and be done with it.
Yeah, it'll be so long. Hopefully it's not so long that it becomes the point where they, like with Cyberpunk, they should have just scrapped the PS4 and Xbox versions and just only released on next gen. Mm-hmm. Like if it take too long to release on PS5 and series consoles, like, okay, you should just release this on PS6 or something, but I obviously they should be fine. Just tone it down a bit. But then Elden Ring Night Rain got announced. It's a standalone co-op game, so Elden Ring will be up for multiplayer game of the year at the Game Awards next year.
Stop.
And then, well, at least it'll be standalone, so it's like, okay, I get it. It's like that's fine. But when I saw it, and as soon as I saw the blue like flames coming, I'm like, is this a battle royale or is it going to be like a timed co-op, like, oh, you got your co-op mission, you got to take out the Nameless King before the circle closes? Like, is that what we're doing?
Nameless King.
I think literally that.
Yeah.
I mean, from everything I've read about it, it seems like it's just gonna not just, but it seems like it's going to be an Elden Ring roguelike where you have to get to the end within 3 days, because they kept mentioning the freaking 3-day timer, or not timer. They said and on the 3rd day you'll battle, whatever force together. So they make it seem like it's a 3-day timeline roguelike, sort of like Majora's Mask / Elden Ring, I guess.
Ooh, I wonder if it'll be if each day is a different region pulled from a Souls game, and it's that roguelike thing. If you run around, you opening chests trying to find armor, and you're with your buddies, oh, you like this great sword? There's a great sword here, and then it's you do that. It's okay, let's hit the exit gate. You open the door, you go to the next realm, and now you're in quote day 2, and then you're another. It's oh, and you can take out bosses. They'll give you better gear. Obviously, they'll drop that to help you on your roguelike run. That could be interesting, but again, it's the real challenge is, as they say, finding 2 other people to play with.
It's
yeah.
Yeah, it's also just interesting because it's FromSoft reuses a lot of assets in their games. They reuse a ton of stuff, but they usually do tweak it in some way, or at least the reused assets sort of make sense. They've reused move sets from previous games in new games, but it's that was clearly just the Nameless King. So if that's a reused asset, that's pretty weird. It feels like they are trying to figure out a way to tie Dark Souls 3 into Elden Ring somehow, which is totally different lore. So that'll be, I don't know. Reusing the Nameless King was a stretch too far, unless it really is trying to tie the lore together.
Multiverse. They're a multiverse.
But that's, I know. I'm I hope they don't. I don't know.
But it's it's so not going to matter from a lore perspective.
No,
it's just a co-op game that would be fun.
And I do think they said it's non-canon, so that kind of helps.
So Vadi doesn't have to make any
somewhat
videos.
canon.
There's that tweet from Vadi. He's trying to explain why the Nameless King is in the Lands Between.
Yeah, it was funny because Carbot Animation just released their final video of their Elden Ring run at fighting the Elden Beast, and then it was done. But then they got hit with they get crowned the Elden Lord, and then they're but what about the DLC? What about Shadow of the Earth Tree? All the people in the crowd to be the comments on YouTube, and they're all right, we've got 9 episodes coming out for Shadow of the Earth Tree, and then someone in the comments of that was don't tell them about Night Rain.
Yeah,
now they gotta do more content now. But I mean, it could be really fun. I'd be curious how, I don't know, if the areas are big. I don't know, we'll see. And if it's a $30 game or something like that, $40, it could be fun. Ghost of Tsushima co-op, was really good. Obviously co-op in the Souls games is fun when it works. That okay, if this is made to be co-op and we're doing all this stuff, that could be really fun. So we'll see. Then FF7 Rebirth got a PC announcement. It's coming in January 23rd. I kind of wish I didn't play as much as I did on PS5, because I could see if I didn't getting this on PC to actually go back and play it, because my biggest issue is just the visual quality, and I kind of wish I had a PS5 Pro to continue to play it, so it wouldn't be such a problem. I need to find out though if I think one of the problems could be that I'm playing on a bigger monitor, a 4K monitor on my desk when I play, so I'm close, so all the visual stuff stands out easier at this distance, versus what if I played it on a TV sitting back at a proper distance? Now my TV is a 4K TV anyways, but maybe if I put it on there and sat back on a couch, maybe that would help some of the problems I have. It's just I don't like looking at it in motion in the open world. When I got to Costa del Sol, it's it was easier because okay, it's a tiny little town. But if I get back out into that open world with trees and shit, the nature's just gonna hurt my eyeballs looking at. So I was I could just get it again, but I'm then I have to do that card tournament again, and then I gotta go back all the way through here. I don't know if I want to redo
the nature is going to hurt my eyeballs.
Dude, running around that first open area with the trees and all the telephone poles ghosting it when you're playing at the high frame rate mode, just it's rough, man. And it's too open, so things at a distance just look not good. It's just graphically. That's why it was crazy seeing when Digital Foundry did the PS5 Pro comparison, how much clearer and less blurry and pixelated it is in the 60 FPS mode. And I'm that is crazy. It almost sold me on getting a Pro, just to be able to play Rebirth. Because I can't do it on the 30 FPS, it doesn't make it look too much better, and it's too, I must be too close to the screen to play it I think that's the issue. Is I gotta like scoot back. Maybe if I play it, but I like move my chair back like 8 feet and just play at a distance on my monitor, I'll be okay. But it just rough on the eyes, man. Being as close on the bigger monitor. I just need it on a tiny monitor. But anyways, that's coming to PC pretty quick too. I feel like for that game. Then there was a game that I saw and I wasn't paying attention because it was like during one of the like it was a trailer during like a commercial break, and I was typing in chat or I was doing something.
It was Intergalactic.
No, it was Catly. This cat game that in the corner of my eye, I was like, is this AI? Because like it looks that way, and like that's what like everyone now is saying on Twitter. Like this looks like some AI generated game, and I was trying to rewatch it to see if there was any of those like standout AI stuff or like things don't work properly. And it just I don't know what the hell this game is, man. Catly, it's like it looks like how AI looks, just that render that AI does, and I'm like, and maybe it's just they used AI for like their announcement trailer, and that's like not the gameplay because it's going to be on the Apple Watch.
Man,
yeah, but why would you do that?
Because people are trash, man. Also, like the Twitter account is like really new. It's only got a couple tweets or whatever. It's like I don't know, man.
The sketch.
It wouldn't be the first time that like the gaming industry got scammed by a game. There was God. I mean, I'm blanking on the one that just happened recently. What was the game that just came out recently that they like had to issue major refunds for, and it was just
the day before.
Yes,
and then when they did a Kickstarter for another game that failed, and they said we're going to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, there was the Stalker 2, not by the devs that just made this Stalker, but there was that company that tried to raise money, claiming they got the license to Stalker 2 to make a sequel to the original Stalker. And it was like totally bullshit, but gaming media ran with it for a while that this was going to be like the new Stalker. And again, totally unrelated to the Stalker that actually came out just now. But yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that like people jumped on the bandwagon for a scam of a game.
Yeah. Plus they got like Pokimane and some other people like tweeting about it. I'm like, but it doesn't say like, hashtag ad. They're like, they're quote unquote like a game ambassador, kind of a partner thing. So it's like that's like the new version of ads. I'm like, I don't know, man. It's just weird. Anyway. And then we got a brief glimpse at Fumito Ueda's next game at Gen Design. It's an untitled project. I think the code name was Project Robot. But yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, there's like this character climbing up this giant robot, and there's a shockwave coming up, and they launch the head to go above the shockwave, and I guess you land back down. Like, and maybe the gameplay is you repair the. I'm all about repairing stuff now because of other games where it's like you repair the robot and you go travel around, and then the shockwave comes, and you have to let it get destroyed and launch the head again. Like that's the gameplay loop.
I mean, it looks super atmospheric, and he did Shadow of the Colossus and all those games. So it's like, all of those games are. If you saw a trailer for Shadow of the Colossus, it would look not more epic than it is, but maybe more like action oriented than it actually is. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is just kind of like a heavy atmospheric, weird kind of apocalyptic vibes game, like all of his other ones are.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the idea of just like exploring a world in a giant mech that gets damaged, so then the loop is repairing it so you can keep exploring, and then it gets damaged and then you repair it again to keep exploring, and it's like you just get more efficient at that repairing, which allows you to explore more, and like I like the idea of that loop, but that's just me. The way Keeley talked about it at the trailer, like, oh, the moving imagery or whatever, I'm like, really, man? I mean, there was like a short trailer. I guess you were moved because it's Ueda. It was really weird.
It was so weird. He was so into it, and it was like, I mean, the trailer's cool. Like, no problems with the trailer itself. But yeah, the game did not show anything. You could have just been like from you could have just been like from the director of Shadow of the Colossus, creator. I don't know. Maker, yeah. You could have just been like from the maker of Shadow of the Colossus and next project, and then show the trailer and be like, based on his past games, I'm sure this will be great, and move on. But he's like,
moving.
Yeah, weirdly touched by it, and it was like, did you read the script wrong? Did you like overreact there? Now it's just awkward.
It's just weird.
He's seen something we haven't seen, is what it is.
I guess, yeah. And then after that, we got a new trailer for Outer Worlds 2 with the 2025 release window. And it was interesting because I was surprised. I went back and watched the announcement trailer, and I was like, they didn't put like that it confirmed it was coming to PlayStation on the announcement, and it said PS5 at the end of the trailer. I was like, okay. And I don't remember if that was confirmed at any other point. by Phil Spencer at all when they were talking about, because anytime they talk about cross-platform games, they always say strategically where it makes sense, yada yada. Here it does because the first one was on PlayStation, but
I feel though that the whole reason behind them being weird about this is because they keep saying that none of these games will come to PS5, and then every game is coming to PS5. And I think it's more of like they need to market it so people buy Xboxes still, because despite them saying that they just focus on software, they do still care about selling Xbox consoles. And that means that they can't just be like, it's coming to PS5, it's coming to PS5, because PS5 already has a higher install base.
With how much they have that commercial of like, this is an Xbox and this is an Xbox, it's like, okay, my PlayStation's going to be an Xbox. Like,
right.
Like, this is where you're going, which is fine if you want to go that way. Like, just Sega just makes games. You don't have to keep making consoles, but
yeah,
it's like there's nothing wrong with that.
But I think that's a hard sell to like investors or something to be like, yeah, we're actually just going to support Sony now.
Sure, but it's like
you can't just bluntly say that.
If you're making money on the games, though, it's like I feel like it's like, okay, we're not making money because we don't have a lot of Xboxes out there, and so we're not making as much. That's why you make stuff on PC, yada yada, and you have some things that came to Switch. But it's like you gotta sell more, and Game Pass is going to stall out at some point. And it's like, how do you? And then the way you split the funds between what gets downloaded on Game Pass to all those developers, like you gotta have another revenue stream, but who knows? But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad it got confirmed because I did like Outer Worlds, and I'll play Outer Worlds too. I'm curious it'll be staggered release. It didn't say that. It didn't like. It won't be like like with Indiana Jones, it's staggered, but it looks like it's all gonna come at the same time. I do like the kind of like silly tone they have with the trailers of like the Neverwinter Nights 2 and Knights of the Old Republic 2 and Fallout 3. 2 New Vegas. Like, I thought that was really funny.
The trailer was funny. I mean, I enjoyed the first game. The first game was definitely not as good as New Vegas or really any of their other games. Like, I don't know. It didn't click with me for a lot of reasons, but it was a solid like 7 or 8 out of 10, and I would definitely play the second one. I enjoyed it enough to go back to it. Yeah,
very colorful too. It wasn't like a gray world. It was a colorful world because you're on alien planet, which is fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Look forward to that. And then we got Joseph Harris came out and showed their next game called Split Fiction. The idea that, these people go to this place to get their creative ideas out in a virtual world because they want to pitch these books to write. But then it turns out like the CEO is a douchebag who steals those ideas. But I'm like, okay, if you steal the ideas, do you also wipe their memory of the idea? Like, how do you steal it before they can copyright it? Kind of like the windshield wiper, like is it one of those situations where like, hey, I have this idea and like, we're not going to fund it, but then they just steal it, like, because you can't, I don't know what you're going to do. But they get like trapped in the same VR together, and I don't know why your system would allow you to take someone out and that you have to finish your thing. It's weird, but it makes for a really fun game because then it's like one person does sci-fi, one does high fantasy, so it's like, okay, bounce back and forth. It looks really cool. Isli, we'll need to finish It Takes Two so we could play this game.
I know.
Stop being an adult.
Yeah,
dude,
stop just having a social life, man.
I knew you were going to give me shit because there were so many games there that were like co-op that looked really interesting, and I knew if I commented on any of them, you would be like, "Gotta finish It Takes Two first. Can't play this one. Gotta play It Takes Two first."
Multiplayer with Michael than I have with you, I feel like.
I felt, I mean, we'll get into what we've been playing, but then I saw the fucking, the year-end thing, and I'm like, oh my god, how did this even happen?
100 and something hours in Core Keeper.
Yeah, for
which is a multiplayer game, but you have been playing a lot.
Well, we would have if it had crossplay, because the problem is I don't want to have to re-download it and yada. I was like, but he's got a PC now, so who knows? Maybe we can.
It made me laugh. Yeah. But yes, it's Split Fiction. I do want to play that too.
Yeah, we did play a lot of Elden Ring together, so we got the platinum trophy at we got the picture of when I got the platinum trophy. We're both standing there looking over Lernia. But yeah, Split Fiction looks like a lot of fun. And there was a game called Still Hunters. It's from the World of Tank Studio. It's like these mechs. Looks interesting. Long Dark 2 got announced. I'm curious how popular the Long Dark was, but apparently it did well enough to get a sequel. Comes out in early access in 2026 though. Then we had a Borderlands 4 trailer, mix of cinematic and in-game, but not as much in-game stuff as some of their past gameplay trailers that they've had. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's more Borderlands. I mean, I'll play it when it comes out, but it wasn't quite up there with their like the Borderlands 3 trailer they had. I thought was really good, especially with the music and everything they did. Like even 2, but yeah, it's okay. It's Borderlands. Then we had
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. But the Borderlands 4 trailer, it felt very serious to me. It didn't feel like the typical Borderlands vibe, and I kind of wondered if, like, obviously not like 100% serious, but I know that there was a lot of feedback for Borderlands 3 that it was too childish because the people that played Borderlands 1 were now, adults, so they didn't have the same sense of humor as Borderlands 1, and they needed to like mature up the game. And it felt like they were trying that with Borderlands 4, and I don't know how I feel about it or how it feels like it's going to work. Like it didn't feel like it had any identity in the trailer. It felt like every other game I've seen.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see, like, with their main antagonist, like, how will that work to have more serious jokes? Like, I feel like if they can find that balance, that probably would make the jokey bits work better. Because, like, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is very much like, it's just all jokey. Even, like, the villain's joke. And there's some fun there. Like, I do like some of that. Can be pretty funny. But it's like, okay, this is where it's supposed to be, because we're playing D&D or Dungeons and Badasses or whatever. And it's like, okay, that fits this world. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what they do for 4. But then we got Clive coming to Tekken 8.
Yeah.
Yep, there's that.
My new Tekken
That was
main.
the fucking funniest bait reveal ever of him being like the, critically acclaimed RPG, and then they show Clive and it's like, okay, something looks a little bit off or different about this. And they just introduce him as a character in Tekken. It was so baity.
Yep.
The bait reveals for Smash and Tekken are probably my favorite announcements that ever occur. That's just so funny.
Then we're I'm gonna skip some of the smaller stuff and good things. But we've got a Virtua Fighter is returning from the makers of Like a Dragon. That was a lot of people really loved that. I mean, I'm not a Virtua Fighter person, so it kind of was like, okay, but everybody's really excited for that. Then Project Sentry, also being made by the RGG studio, got shown. So another game from them that they're working on.
That looks very cool.
And then there was a trailer where it's like starts in a jungle and there's like a pyramid, like Aztec looking pyramid, and then there's like someone running and there's a dinosaur. I'm like, oh, this is, and they're running with an axe. I'm like, oh, this is Turok, right? I'm like it has to be because they have an axe. But everybody I watch is always like, is this Ark, the Vin Diesel Ark, or is this Jurassic Park? And I'm like, and then they show the main character. I'm like, okay, it's clearly Turok, right? Like because and it's like. And then it doesn't until the end when it says Turok Origins. And we're like, oh, it's Turok. I'm like, yeah, did you not? Like,
nobody remembers Turok and it makes me sad.
Yeah, I know. Like, Turok 2 Seeds of Evil is like one of my favorite 64 games to play all the time. Like, multiplayer on that was fun. Serial War, man.
It's a different vibe than Turok, though. Like, this is clearly only Turok because they wanted name recognition and not actually, like, it's not first person. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a new IP or if they announced it as like Ark or something, because it wasn't first person.
They don't show the third person until after they announce the Turok. Like they showed the 3 characters and they say Turok Origins and then they show some gameplay. And I'm fine if they go to the third. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's not like it was a stealth action game. Like it was a shooter. I feel like it could be fun going third. I mean the Turok in 2008 that they did, like it was okay. I didn't never beat it, but I did play through a big chunk of it. I feel like I'm totally fine when change. I mean, it's been forever since a Turok game's been out, and that was kind of like a soft reboot. Anyways, it didn't even have anything to do with it. But if this is like Turok Origins, that could be really cool because I was like, okay, now kind of not that it's like that game has an insane story or anything, but like it could be really fun. And I look forward to fighting dinosaurs and dinosaur aliens. Be a good time. Then we had skipping ahead some stuff. Power Roll's getting an update. Yada yada. Then we had a game where it's like trailers kind of like, okay, it's like in Japan, it's very dark, there's these red things floating around. I'm like, oh, and I thought for a bit like, could this be like, I didn't say it in Discord, I wish we were watching because like that is always fun going back watching live streams to be like, okay, who's predicting? And there's this one channel I watch where like this one dude predicted like a bunch of games when they first were showing them, and like, is it this? And then it's like, yeah, it turns out to be that. But like Onimusha Way of the Sword, I was like, is this an Onimusha game? And like, yeah, all the red orbs get sucked up into the gauntlet. I'm like, oh man, I haven't played Onimusha since the first one. Because I didn't play the second one, but I really like that first game. But yeah, it's Onimusha's coming back in 2026. I'd be curious to see how they adapt it. If it's going to be more like action Souls-like.
I remember loving the first one. First one was Warlords, right?
No, it's just Onimusha.
Oh,
Well,
God.
it might have been subtitled Warlords. I thought
I don't
2
know
was
which one I
Warlords.
played. I played one of the first one or second one. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, I haven't played that for 15, 20 years, something like that. So I was like, yeah, this looks cool. I'll play this. Spooky, weird monster vibes. But since then, they've had so many games that have kind of been similar to that. Like you have Neo, which different gameplay style, but like Neo, Ninja Gaiden, um, Black Myth to an extent that genre and field has been expanded on a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how it defines itself.
Yeah, it was Warlords. The Warlords subtitle is like super tiny underneath the shot of the game, and like looking at like that's such a tiny subtitle. But yeah, Onimusha Warlords 2001, and then Onimusha 2 came out in 2002. But I didn't play Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny, and then there was after that there was Demon Siege on PS2. Didn't play that, and I didn't play Dawn of Dreams either. I only played the first one, so I wouldn't mind going back and playing a game I haven't played and, franchise I haven't touched in like 25 years by the time it comes out. But yeah, that's interesting stuff, especially like I said, if it's got that updated third person action, like how things are now, very Souls-like fun action games, but we'll see. Blah, blah, we got a release window for Dying Light the Beast coming summer 2025. A new game from the makers of Overcooked called Stage Fright. I like that trailer, and that game looks like it could be really fun. Very, again, kind of a split screen game, but I'm all about it though. Like it, there could be more than one. Like
it looks so cute.
Yeah, I like the mouth movements because it looks like it reminds me of like the Lego Movie where the mouths are just like stickers of the what they're saying. And I like that. Yeah, I like when they're watching the theater, like, oh, look at the gameplay. It looks so good. Yeah, the one character being like, you got mad at me in Overcooked when we played that, and he's like, "Well, I told you not to throw me the onions," and like getting all mad, like, see, like, okay, right. So, but yeah, that looks like it could be fun. I especially because it's like if it's very active like that, where one character on one side was unlocking something to help the other character get through, which again, it's a lot of what It Takes Two does, but I feel like doing split screen stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. There's good times, so that'll be fun. There's a Game of Thrones King's Road announced, but I guess it's a mobile game, which is weird.
Sure,
like, okay,
whatever.
Whatever. Last of Us 2 Remastered is coming to PC, which everybody expected. That's coming on the 3rd of April. There's that. A Sonic Team Racing Crossworlds is coming. You were very excited for that.
I love Sonic Racing. I love any kind of like goofy, like kart style racing game. Obviously Mario Kart, but Mario Kart like Double Dash is the greatest of all greats.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I really like that Sega is now leaning into the goofiness of Sonic and kind of like how everybody lovingly rips on it. So for them to release a new like kart racer game when Mario Kart is obviously dominating the scene is very funny to me, and I really want to play it.
Yeah, could be a good time. Then we had trailer for. It was funny, like they had a build trailer for Mafia: The Old Country. I'm not like a Mafia person, so like I watched. I'm like, okay, it means nothing to me, but I'm like, maybe if it does well, like I'll play it. But like, okay, I know a lot of people are really excited for that. Yeah. Then we had Aaron Paul and Laura Bailey come out to lead into a game called Dispatch, which was from the makers of The Wolf Among Us and Tales from the Borderlands. Their new studio, Ad Hoc, and it's when I watched it, I was like, man, it looks like a TV show, like something that you just watch. Like it looks really good. And then they show like the gameplay for it, like, okay, this is what you'll be doing. But the idea that you're just a dispatcher and there's like a crime and you have to match up the right hero for that crime, I think is really cool. Like it's kind of like that. I was gonna say kind of like I just can't remember the other name, but like a game like Papers, Please, where it's like the inverse of it, where instead of you're trying to see who's a spy, you're trying to figure out, okay, who's the best fit for this, and it looks like there's maybe some hacking. Like it looks like a good time, and I'm like, oh, I didn't play Wolf Among Us. I did play some of the episodes of Tales from Borderlands, but I'm like, this looks really fun, and it looks really good. And a lot of interesting. They got like Jacksepticeye and Moist Critical and doing voices in there. I'm like, all right, sure.
It looks very fun.
Yeah, it looks, and it seems like the choices could be, there's that, because they show that one scene where like a hero falls in a car and you have like 3 choices and you pick one, he says it. I'm like, okay, it seems like it seems seamless with the way it works, versus like sometimes when you do like a choice in a game, even a game where it's not like a never choice, like there could be some kind of a little disconnect in the way, usually it's in like the tone in which the person is talking leading up to the choice, and then the choice might be different because maybe it was recorded not chronologically, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we need to record these 3 responses, but then they record like the lead up to that response at a different time. So like it might not sound right, like it sounds off. But it sounded like when they picked that choice, like it worked pretty well. And then even the other scene where like there's a little dog and he picks like a meth puppet voice or whatever. Like it seems working. Like, okay, as long as it doesn't like break immersion where it sounds like, okay, this clearly doesn't seem to fit as well as maybe like a different option might, like that'll be good. But yeah, looks good. Hopefully it does well, because a lot of the, like, again, a lot of those ex devs, they obviously suffered a lot of bad management at that old studio at Telltale, and so we'll hopefully it does well for them. And then we had a segment where suddenly there was a music bit, and I couldn't tell, like, is this a gameplay trailer or are we just like watching some music thing? Like, what's going on here? And this is another one where I thought, like, oh, is this like an Okami? Like, I feel like the games where like I don't play or I'm not like a huge like fan of them, like, oh, I wish there was another Okami. Like I felt like I was calling pretty quick. I was like, is this Okami? And I'm like, but I didn't think like it's an Okami sequel, because I think they do an HD Okami ways back.
They didn't.
Yeah.
Oh god, they did do a sequel already, sort of.
They did. Yeah, there was. It was on the 3DS. It's called Okami Den, and you play as Amaterasu's puppy. I don't remember if it was son or daughter. I think son. But yeah, they did release Okami HD on like everything quite a while ago, I think.
Yeah, and they said Okami sequel. It's just like clearly it's very early stages. For this. So who knows when it'll come out? But yeah, I know a lot of people are excited for
on
that.
it. Oh, yep. So excited!
Yeah, I mean, again, hopefully it's not like it's always kind of rough though when they announce like, hey, we're working on something. I mean, because it goes straight into the next game that they showed, which was Naughty Dog's next game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, which they said after the trailer it's been in work since 2020. So it's like, okay, that's been in the pipe for a while. Like, obviously, because they got to be working on something. But like, this is like, okay, we're announcing we're gonna be doing this. It's like when they announced, oh, we're gonna do Shenmue 3, and it's like, but we got a Kickstarter going. And it's like, okay, well, you're not actually there yet. you hadn't hit the payment yet. You're just like, oh, we're thinking about it.
Yep.
But yeah, he ended it with a one more thing, and it was like a space. I didn't even think that it would be Naughty Dog. Like I wasn't thinking. I wasn't like, oh, it'll be Naughty Dog's game in my head. Like, and I should have guessed it because the character models make, okay, this is clearly like a Naughty Dog model if it's in game, and then like their scan style.
The character models looked like Naughty Dog, but I will give them credit. Like the tone of the game and everything about it, none of that screamed Naughty Dog to me.
Yeah, I didn't even think about any of it until it was like I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, cool retro future stuff going on, but like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah,
and then it's like, suddenly it's like, oh, the people
the
who
anime vibes, the anime vibes, the soundtrack, all of that. Like even the action that they kind of showed, it was kind of like none of it really aligned with what we've seen from Naughty Dog thus far. Which I guess is like the jump from Uncharted to Last of Us. That kind of was like a totally different vibe from them. And even Jak and Daxter. So they do jump around with like genres quite a bit. But man, it caught me off guard.
It was I wasn't expecting it, because I was happy to be caught off guard. But and it's got like Kumail Nanjiani and Tony Dalton in there. And I'm like, and I try to recognize some of the other characters who are like, I forget what they call them, like the something five. Clearly, like they were a group, and it seems like, okay, the story is clearly like you were part of this group. Something went wrong, and now you're a bounty hunter. And they say it's inspired by Cowboy Bebop. It's like, all right. It's so funny too. Like the people that I don't know what people. And again, this is when I say people, I just mean idiots. But like on Twitter, like, oh, look at all the branding. I'm like, do you not know what retrofuturism is about? Or it's like typically corporations become way too big. Hello, US. And they like it's their brand is on everything, and they're like, look at it, you got Porsche, you got Adidas and Sony, and yada. I'm like, you play a Kojima game, man. There's advertising there too, but I'm like, this is like that's what it is. Did you play Cyberpunk? Like it's all like the corporations in there everywhere. They're just not real because it's that universe.
Or even like look at any of the the sci-fi movies from the 70s and the 80s, where that was literally the idea of the future from the 70s and the 80s, and it's like, look at Alien and Aliens, where it's essentially a large corporation that's fucking over these miners. Look at like Running Man and all those movies. Like, they all have Blade Runner. They all have this idea that corporations get too large and control the government, and that the branding is on everything. Fifth Element, when he wakes up and he has like the dozens and dozens of like ads he has to close when he wakes up.
I mean, yeah, and it's like and I get it because like those are typically in their own world, where this is like, no, it's Earth if things went different and space exploration took off much faster around, the 80s and yada yada. So it's like, okay, well, all those brands were there. Porsche would clearly get into building spaceships, you know what I mean? And then like everything else there'd be a longer, lifespan for these companies that would, go off and yada yada. But yeah, it seems, I'm curious though, because it looks, I guess on the PlayStation blog, they kind of talk about it and say like, oh, in the trailer, I guess the trailer is more like a setup for the game, where like she's looking for one of the folks from, I'd assume, her old crew. And it's Kumail Nanjiani's on some planet that no one goes to. Seems like a very Bermuda Triangle kind of planet. Like no one comes back. It's been that way for like 600 years or something like that. And you go down there, and I'm guessing you get like, I think they say in the thing, like you get stranded, and your thing is you're looking for this person, and you're trying to get off the planet. So I'm curious if it's a Blue Eye Samurai situation where this game is this one, and if they do a sequel, it'll be another one of the characters, or are you only looking for this one because he's the one who screwed over your old team or something, your old crew? Like I'm curious what that'll be, but being on just the one planet versus like going from planet to planet, I'm like, I'm fine either way, but just because I'm like, oh man, I want to fly that ship. let me fly it a bit, man. I want to do some of that. But yeah, if it's just on the planet, that's fine. And I'm curious how it's going to be combat wise, because I really like the combat in like TLU 2.
The combat certainly looked like an action game to me. Mm-hmm. Like she pulls out the sword weapon saw thing, and she's going up against like a big creature. So it felt like it was going to be like an action game. Yeah.
Like okay, is it going to be hack and slash God of War style?
Yeah,
and which could be really cool if they depend on how they do it. Like obviously there could be stealth bits. I mean, there's you ain't stealth in God of War because you're the fucking God of War. But unless you're Atreus, then you're kind of trying to sneak around a little bit. But it's like there could be stealth sections you're hiding from these robots. Like, and someone pointed out like too, like I guess one of the robot kind of looks like a scrap design of a robot, I think for a unreleased Jax game. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like reusing an idea from an old game as a new enemy and a new one. Like, but yeah, I'm really curious. It's like, it's such and it's so funny because people are like, oh, they're calling it a franchise. I'm like, that's what they said about Last of Us. They called it their fourth franchise. Like, it's not like it's new. It's not the same way that like Ubisoft, when they announced Assassin's Creed as being their next, the way they did it, like, okay, this is going to be like our next huge thing. It's our universe. Mm-hmm. We're going to have books and all this stuff for Assassin's Creed versus like, hey, it's our new game. It's like, yeah, obviously. In that tweet I shared in Discord where someone was like, I go back and find it, where it was like, oh shit, oh no, this is the wrong, I'm in the wrong thing. It was like, oh no, all the release schedule for the next decade of Naughty Dog just leaked. It's like, oh, Intergalactic 2025 PS5, Intergalactic PC 2027, Intergalactic Remastered PS6 2029, remastered on PC.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of probably how it's going to be. But yeah, I'm curious what they'll. It'd be interesting to see. They like. I'm trying to think like with Kumail Nanjiani and Tony Dalton, and it's like it's just their likeness, not like they're not just doing a voice. I'm wondering, like, I think because they haven't done. Because everybody else in all their other games, it's just they've been a voice. They're not modeled after those characters. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious. It's like the first time I see like I'm like obviously it won't like feel different, but I wonder how that'll be to experience, because then it'll be more like a Kojima game, right? Where it's like, okay, it's their visuals, but not voiced by them for some of the characters, like Deadman and whatnot. Like Kojima obviously likes to use the actors and what have you, but collect them like Pokemon. But yeah, Intergalactic. I mean, who knows when the hell it's going to come out? I mean, I'm trying to think. When did they announced TLU 2 in like 2011? That came out 2013. Or sorry, the last.
Am I crazy? I thought they said they wanted to shoot for 2025 to 26. I didn't think it was a few years out, but I thought they announced. I'm not saying it's not going to get delayed. I just thought that like they had shared the intent that it would come out in a year or two. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I mixed it up with something else.
Again, with 2011 for The Last of Us, and then 2013, and then when did they announce TLU? TLU 2 was announced at a PlayStation Experience. I forget when. But yeah, I'd imagine if they announced it now, they're probably going to shoot for like February or like Q1, Q2 of 2026. So, which isn't that far out from announcement. I mean, if they announce, it's a month or a year and a couple months. So I'm like, I feel like that's probably what they're going to try to do now that they've announced it. So we'll have this. We'll probably have another trailer. Maybe at like I don't know if they'll do another trailer at Summer Game Fest. Sony will have like a state of play or something, or a PlayStation showcase or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
All about it, showing gameplay. But yeah, I feel like I wish I could remember when they announced TLU 2, because they did delay that because it's going to be February. It came out later that year because of COVID. But yeah, I can't imagine. I'd assume 2026 would be the release year for this. Man, gotta wait now. It's like I want to play. But I know
I try not to think. It's like 1,000% my aesthetic, and it's very much. Have you seen my new wife? She drives a Porsche. She flies a Porsche. So it's just like I have to try to not think about it, and then just be surprised when they re-announce it with a release date later.
Naughty Dog hasn't released a game yet that I didn't love, so I feel like I will love it, and got to forget about it until it actually comes time at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross doing the soundtrack for it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Future, space kind of game. You're not gonna have a, little guitar picking.
The soundtrack in the trailer was really good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It fit perfectly.
Man, that's a crazy like career for Trent Reznor. I feel like doing just musician to be like, all right, now I'm gonna do some movies. He's like, all right, go ahead. He's done a lot of films. But yeah, I'm excited for that, and so is everybody else except idiots.
Yeah, and we just don't care about them. They're just loud.
We don't care about them. They're dumb.
They're loud for no reason.
Yeah, that's again. It goes that thing where like I don't follow those people, but then it's like people who just quote tweet to dunk on them. I'm like, yeah, but now I don't want to see it still. Like, can you not? Like, keep it out of my feed, please. Thank you.
That's why I stay on Blue Sky.
Yeah, man, it's so annoying. The one thing about Blue Sky is like people that
now you got them started.
People talking on Twitter and posting about it on Blue Sky. I'm like, stop. The whole reason you go over here is to get away from all the nonsense. But anyway, yeah.
I see the constant posts about like, hey, blocking actually works on this website, so don't quote post people and trying to dunk on them. Just block them and they'll go away. Yeah. Stop doing here what you left Twitter for.
Yep. But all right, we'll go ahead and move on from there to what we've been playing. Isli, you've been out for a bit, so why don't you go ahead and start with you?
Well, according to my PlayStation yearly recap, the game I've been playing for the past I felt like it had only been a few weeks, which doesn't necessarily align with the amount of hours I've put in. But I've been playing a shit ton of Core Keeper. I downloaded Core Keeper randomly. I think maybe it was right before my computer broke, and I kind of. At that time, I'd got my internet fixed. I got a new router. I was playing on the PlayStation Portable and was looking for a kind of chill farming-esque game to play on the PlayStation Portable. And I had downloaded Stardew Valley again to try the new updates and downloaded Core Keeper. And I was just going to give Core Keeper a shot first. And 150 or 170 something hours later, I'm still playing Core Keeper. So turns out I really like the game. It's just kind of a fun mining game. I've been playing on hardcore, so the first few times I played through, I died pretty early on while I was figuring everything else out. But the game itself is just really chill. It's your typical survival sandbox game, kind of like Minecraft or Terraria. I like the aesthetic of the top-down pixels. It's a great angle for the game. The progression of how you essentially like craft things, and then what is my computer yelling at me about? Oh, it's trying to update stuff since I just got a new one. The progression of like crafting new weapons and mining materials in order to mine tougher blocks, I guess, in order to craft tougher weapons. It's like the classic survival loop, and it just works really well. I love the monsters in the game. It's all cute and fun. The bosses are really challenging, or like kind of unique when you come across them. Maybe not challenging, but they're all kind of like really different and unique and fun to play around with. The farming in the game, like trying to get drops to make builds, like DPS builds, is really varied and nice. You can do like ranged attacks, you can do melee, you can do magic. They just introduced summoning. So it's a pretty fleshed out game, and it actually has somewhat of a story. But it's not the best in everything or anything, but it does so much right that it all just kind of clicks together really well. And I know you guys have played it before, so you know what I'm talking about, but I've just really liked it.
Yeah, it's a fun time. It's a game I've only ever played with Michael and Zaya, and I would like to get back because I didn't get too far into it. It was a lot of like I'd be like the first boss, and then I ran into, I guess, what could be the second boss, like the underground one. I was like exploring, like I just hear it rumbling, like shaking the screen as I'm exploring. But yeah, it's fun. Like accidentally getting killed by like a golem or something, to be like, I gotta go back and get my stuff. And Michael's just off doing whatever, and Zaya's building up the main hub. But yeah, it's
doing exactly what we did when we played together. He wanders off to God knows where, and I'm just like, I'm gonna build a house.
That's fun.
I loved building a base in that game. I feel like, so by this point in Core Keeper, I've beat all the bosses. I have like my build ready, and I'm kind of just going through and farming like missing pieces from bosses that have drops that I kind of want to complete armor sets. But most of what I'm doing in the game right now is just making a really pretty base.
Mm-hmm.
Like making a huge pretty base, and then I'm sure like when the base is done, then I will be looking for another game. But unfortunately, I still want to play Stardew Valley's new update, which means that my next game might be similar to Core Keeper, where I just put like 200 hours into Stardew Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
There you go.
And the freaking new updates for this side tangent, but like the new updates for PlayStation Portable make it so much smoother with Wi-Fi connectivity that it actually feels like a good system now. It always felt like a good system, and I always enjoyed it, but it was a very niche case system of you basically use it to play your PlayStation in different rooms or something when the TV's taken up.
Yeah.
Or like to play in bed or something, or in like cozy vibes. But the Wi-Fi only connection, which is what it still has, it always kind of sucked. So you could only really play like low stress games. You couldn't play anything that required quick responses, even with good internet. You couldn't play anything that required like a fast response or action oriented or precise timing. And they've done a few updates over the past few months where I haven't touched the console that as soon as I updated everything, it's kind of like a whole different beast now. It feels like you could actually play anything on it. It's a good system. Anyways, That's what I've been up to.
Good stuff. What about you, Zai? What have you been doing?
To nobody's surprise, I've been doing literally nothing but playing Fantasian. It is so good. It's still so good. It's still so gorgeous. The music's good. The combat's good. The only issue that I've run into now is I am probably more than halfway kind of into the later game, and the boss fights have become extremely difficult in a way that's like, some of them have become puzzles in a way, where it's like there's one particular gimmick that if you don't do this specific gimmick, you're just going to wipe right away. Like, for example, there was a, I don't know, like plant mech thing that I was fighting that would summon like little plants around it. And so I start the fight. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I start buffing up my party and getting ready. And I'm like, okay, obviously I have to get rid of these little plant things first. So I get a character that has like a really strong AoE, and I do her AoE, and then it just fucking explodes 18 times and wipes my entire party. And I was like, oh, I did something wrong, clearly. And it turns out what you're supposed to do is hit just one of the plants, and it explodes, and the character's start giving you hints as to like what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to use this particular character's skill, which is fine because it's part of a storyline for a specific character, so that specific character has to be in your party. So you use a skill that they have to move, basically, yes, move the plants away so that you can attack the boss without hitting the plants. But it was just a very funny moment of like, oh, that was wrong what I did, and now I need to figure out how I get the hint without wiping my entire party every time. And yeah, I so eventually figured it out. There's another one where I don't know. I don't think it's really spoilers, but the game's been out for so long at this point, it's just more accessible. But you're fighting like a dog, basically, like a spirit wolf, and it summons other regular wolves, and if you don't kill them, it does this attack where they all attack you, and it hurts a lot. But if you kill them all, then it doesn't do as much damage. And so I'm doing that, and I kind of like fall behind a little bit. I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to super buff up right now, and then I'll use this character's like ultimate to get rid of them all in one swoop. And so that's like my next turn, and the boss has a turn before me, and the boss puts up a shield that's like a 20 hit shield. So you have to hit it 20 times to get rid of that shield. But what I didn't know was that if the wolves are on the field, it applies the shield to everything. And I went, oh, I have done something very incorrectly. So there's been a lot of moments of that where it's just like, I'm kind of going through and I'm kind of understanding the fight, and then I get maybe like halfway through and it does something new, and I'm like, oh, turns out I have fucked up, and now I need to do this next gimmick. So it's just gotten very, very difficult. Like I'm basically stuck on this boss fight right now because I can't. It like disabled my little warp device or whatever, so I can't warp away and do other stuff or whatever. So I can only level in this area. Try to level a little bit. I'm stuck in this fight where it's just like, it's going good, it's going good, it's going good. Everybody's dead. What happened? What happened? What do I do? Oh my god! And then it's like that. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, it's gotten the difficulty spike. It kind of didn't really jump up that much, but I guess I just wasn't super paying attention because like bosses in the beginning, some of them do have a bit of a gimmick to them, and some of them have a very cool gimmick where they'll summon like rocks or debris or something around them, and it's like swirling around them, and you have to time your attacks to go between the debris, because if you just attack wherever, it'll hit the debris and it'll block it. So I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It's like using the environment, and now there's these like little pieces of the environment that are like, they were actual physical things in this diorama that they photographed, but now they're like floating around. Like, oh, that's cool. How'd they do that? They made it like 3D with the texture and everything like that. And but I'm also dumb, and so it takes me a while to figure that out sometimes. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing enough damage. Oh, I have to wait till this thing opens its mouth. But it's not like an event or whatever where it clearly opens its mouth and this is your attack phase. It's just part of its animation. You have to like time it, and I was just like, oh, that's actually very cool. But yeah, some of the boss fights are just like, you did it wrong, you're dead now. I'm like, I've been in this boss fight for 5 minutes. What do you mean?
Yeah.
But it's still good. It's still so good. The story's gotten really, really interesting, and actually the boss fight that I'm stuck in right now that I'm having trouble with is actually a very cool like story beat cutscene, and things escalated very quickly, and it's very awesome. But also like, I just want her to die so that I can move on. But it's still good. It's still so good. And I don't know what I'm going to do after this, because I know that once I finish it, I'm going to have that void.
Yeah.
In my heart, and I don't know what I'm going to do next. So
it's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. Yeah, I haven't played too much. Just still chipping away at Prince of Persia. Didn't play too much of it this week. I did beat 2 bosses. I think I finally got the last like ability to traverse parts of the map I haven't gotten to. I talked about like last week how like, you know, it took forever to get the double jump in that game. I was so surprised. But like getting this last ability, I beat like 2 bosses pretty quick, and then back to back. And I was like, once I got it, I was like, good. I can get everything. I think I'm good. Now I'm on like the final stretch. I got like one major area I just unlocked. I got to explore and do all that. And then I'm playing a lot of Icarus this week though. I was like, that game's just so fun. Like taking that, I think playing it that first week and then taking a break to play Prince of Persia and Pacific Drive, and then going back to Icarus is just like, I don't know. I really like that game a lot. I just have a lot of fun with it. I love the mission structure. Although sometimes the mission structure is gonna be weird. Like I finally got towards like, okay, I have 2 missions I could do where it's like explore 2 different biomes. So one's a desert, one's the like the snow biome. And I'm like, oh, I'll do the desert one first. And all the objective was, hey, we've identified a cave route from the forest biome to the desert. We need you to clear it. So you have to pick up a drill that they drop down for you, power it up they give you a solar panel, and then drill through both parts of the cave. And then once you unlock the path, it's like, okay, mission complete. I'm like, I didn't really go to the desert. I was like, I just unlocked it for the company to come down here and do their stuff. And like, so then I go back, and then when I did the winter biome or the snow biome, it's like I did way more in that biome. Like I had to go like way into it. I was dealing with the frost, and I was like, oh man. And there's like polar bears driving me crazy, and then there's these giant Arctic scorpions. I'm like, you are too big for this biome. And like they were the same speed as me. So like they're chasing me, and we're like face to face, but I got, again, big, well, not really a huge monitor, but like I got a big monitor and I'm close to it, and it's just like the scorpion's like right in my face as I'm running backwards, stabbing it with a stick, and I'm like, go away. Like I didn't want to look at it. I'm like, I can't look at this damn thing, because I ran into scorpions before in the desert biome, but they were smaller. This is like
they were so small.
They were like, dog size. I'm like, okay, that's not bad. But this is like huge. I'm like, why are you so big in the snow biome, man? And it was just like looking at them dead in the eyes as they chased me. I'm like, God, it was so scary. But like, it was so weird that you explore like so much more of that biome than the other one. And then, so I've just been playing a lot of that. And then it's just fun going down. Like I had one mission, it was like, it's a 3 skull mission in the desert. And you have to go like, do something like, oh, why is this like a 3 skull? And I go around like, oh, it's because like I have to run a long way and there's tons of predators on the way there. I'm like, oh man, I don't have like a lot of stuff unlocked at the store to like help me at the start. But like, I think that's what's fun about doing the missions versus doing just the open world, is that as you play and you like, I knew what the gameplay loop is at the beginning of the forest biome. I'm like, okay, I know what to do. And then any mission that goes into the snow biome, you start in the forest biome have to get to the snow biome. Usually you're pretty close. And then in the desert biome, it's like, oh, what's the resource that's hard to get in desert now? I'm like, well, in both areas, like wood is kind of difficult to get. And then like there are some palm trees in the desert, but they're only usually by the water. And then also finding fiber, like from picking up plants and whatnot. There's also not that many plants in the desert. So that's like, okay, everything I'm used to having in abundance in the forest is like not in abundance here. So I'm like, okay, this is where maybe some other, I unlocked the knife, obviously, in the store. I did a new suit, a module that makes me run like have 10% movement speed, a canteen, an oxygen tank, and then a cot. And I'm like, which is great because like I don't have to worry about making the bed, which requires a lot of fur from animals, so you don't have to prioritize hunting animals to get the bed. And then I just can make the fire pit, quickly make a 1x1 little hut, and that's my save point. I'm good to go. But in the desert, it's like, okay, well, that's going to be a little harder to get that. So like maybe having some other resources would be better. It's like, oh, there's not as much of so there's not trees, there's a lot of stone. I unlocked a bunch of the stone structures, but you can't build stone structures from the start. You have to have a specific you have to have the masonry bench, which is built off your crafting table, which is pretty easy to make. So it's like, now that I know that, like, oh, I need this. Now this is the strategy. I need a bunch of, let's build this first. But it's like, I could also potentially, I think I can buy a portable crafting table so I don't have to build it, and then I can just take it down with me. So it's like these things like, what would help me on this mission in this biome? It's like, oh, they're short on these resources. Let's try to take this down with me. Or you could also bring down resource packs with you if you want. Like, oh, hey, maybe give myself some wood, some fiber, or some whatever, and it kind of helped me out on my start. So I like that. Versus like if you do the open world mission, it's like you just build in the forest, you're good to go, yada yada. So I like that. But yeah, it's just I'm having a lot of fun with that. I had this one mission that was weird. Where it was like you had to explore a new section that no one went to, but you had to scale this mountain. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to Fortnite this mountain with a bunch of ramps up the side of the mountain. And then I got to the top and I build them ramps to go down the other side. And I'm like, and I ran off. I did the mission. I put up the beacon. I scanned it and like, okay, mission complete. And I got to go back to my drop pod. And I'm hoping there's a way later to call the drop pod to you, so you don't have to run all the way back. Because sometimes that's a little annoying. I'm like, I got to run back to my ship. But I saved it there and I quit. When I went back the next day, I went in and like the mountain that was separating the two zones was just gone. I'm like, is this like a lore thing? Like I did it and they like just blew up the mountain, like the people who are supposed to be colonizing the planet. Like, is that the lore here? Because they didn't really say it. It's like all of a sudden it was just gone. So I ran back and I'm like, I just see the ramps that I built in the air, just going up. I'm like, this looks really weird. I'll drop it.
The mountain was just gone.
Yeah,
Wait, what?
I'll drop it in chat. But like, this is what it looked like. Oops, that's not what I want.
I kind of feel like that's not.
Yeah,
I feel like that's not intentional, but like I don't know what would cause that, and or how did that affect the mission?
Yeah, like I don't know. It's like, and there was a bunch of trees there. I'm like, well, there wouldn't be any trees. So it's like where I'm standing in the picture is like where the mountain should be. I would be in the mountain, like that was connected. And like it makes sense. Like, hey, before we, if they were going to settle this planet and they wanted someone to check out this area they haven't been to yet, it's like, hey, our idea is it's just giant bunch of rocks in our way. We're just going to destroy them. Like, that makes total sense. You scan it like, hey, does this area have anything of use to us? Yeah, it does. You put down your scanner, and then you go back, and then later they, drop some bombs, or they send down, like, a drill team or something. They just blow up the mountain to make a path. Like, okay, you do that for tunnels, IRL. So I can see them doing that on a planet that they terraformed. But it was just so weird to load back in, and it was just gone. And I'm like, I think that was a mistake. Like, I'm sure if I go back now, the mountain will be gone if I did like another mission in that area. But it was just so weird. So it's like, I just see my ramps. I'm like, why are they just there? And it was weird that they're also supported still. It's like, I thought they would like break apart, but because you need like support if you go too far out. But
it definitely seems like that was not intentional.
Yeah, I was like, okay. But yeah, just been playing a lot of that. Not much of anything else. I got to get back in Prince of Persia. I'm pretty sure I'm close to the end of that. But yeah. Just having, and I still have all those games I download on Steam, which I'll get to eventually.
At some point.
Times. Yeah, once I finish Prince of Persia, and then I
feel like you have to play Astrobot now. Like after Astrobot winning, you need to actually commit to it.
I need to be in the mood for. I mean, that's why I keep going. Like I want to continue finishing up because I'm close to the end of Prince of Persia, but like I'm just so in the mood for Icarus that I keep playing Icarus. And then once I'll keep playing that probably forever because there's so many missions and there's DLC planets I can download and whatnot. But I want to do Prince of Persia, and then I'll chip away at Pacific Drive. But I'll get to it at some point when I'm in the mood to play that kind of game. I just don't want to sit down and speed run it. But anyway,
wonderful news! I beat that boss.
Nice, GG's live update.
Oh my god, I'm so relieved.
That's a good way to end the podcast.
And on that note,
yeah.
I figured out the puzzle that I was just talking about.
Yeah, nice. A mountain dropped on the boss out of nowhere.
Oh, weird. It doesn't look like it fits this aesthetic, but whatever, I'll take it.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll go ahead and call it there. It's a long episode because of the Game Award recap.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, we'll have more to talk about next week we'll see. I guess if you're around next week, it'll be right before Christmas. So if you're in town.
Depends when my mom gets in. She's coming up for Christmas, so
that's true.
It also could be one of those situations where it's like, really need to do a podcast. Be like, hey,
yeah, she can talk about how much she played video games as a kid and how she thought it was a bad life.
Oh God,
I don't know.
That is exactly what she would talk about. She would talk about how I fucking played violent video games as a kid.
Yep.
It's like literally exactly what that would be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or how I played too much Final Fantasy 11.
Yeah.
That would probably come up too.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll go ahead and call it there. So thank you for tuning in and listening. Thank you, Isli. Thank you, Zai, for joining.
Yep.
And we will see you all next time.
Later.
Bye.